we're in business, then we have to look and feel our best in order to show up and show out for our clients and for those that we are trying to make our clients. And so I think it all works well together. And I think the lifestyle component really does show the behind the scenes of like how you use it all and how you live in harmony with your personal life and your business life or your career. Hi guys, welcome to the CEO Mindset Podcast Live. Today, we are going to do the podcast live. Now, if you are new here, you've never stumbled upon my feed, I am Andrea Patrick, and I have called myself so many different things. I have been marketing strategist, which I am. I have called myself a personal branding strategist, which I am. I have called myself an executive coach, which I am. Maybe today, after you hear a little bit of what I am saying, it will spur some thoughts on how you can use me. For the sake of this podcast and my YouTube channel, we are talking about business, beauty, and lifestyle because those are the things that I think really make up who we are. But I really wanted to talk today on the podcast about the idea of living your best life and what that looks like, what goes into it, what makes the ball start to roll. I am about to start a series when I'm going to be talking to a lot of other entrepreneurs on the podcast, and we're going to be really visiting this area of not just what it means to live your best life, but how do you get there? What can you do once you're there? How can you use what you love best and most about yourself and monetize it and have the ability to work on a beach somewhere? Like, what does living your best life mean to you? And so today on the podcast, I've got 3 things that I think are really important. These aren't the only 3 things, but these are 3 things that I think are going to kind of be the foundation for you living your best life. And so let's start off with the very first one, which is having confidence in yourself and the unique value that you bring to the table. Now, I was just having a conversation with someone. My mother picked me up from the airport and one of her coworkers was in the car. We started having this conversation about some of the things that she's looking forward to doing as she's, starting to transition out of her career. And we started talking about sort of some of the things that she may want to do. And what I found was common with her and a lot of other people is that there is a sense of you have to have it all together before you can start. And so she was like, I have this degree, what I wanted to do, but then this is the route that I ended up taking in education, and I'm not quite sure how I can put it together. Well, in order for her to live her best life, in my head, I'm thinking, oh girl, sweetie, we can get those 2 things married together very, very easily. She wasn't confident in her unique value and her unique approach to that particular process. And what I told her is exactly what I tell people inside of my program, Project CEO. I tell them that we are as unique as a snowflake or as a fingerprint. There is no one on this earth who has the exact same combination of influence, experience, perspective, and passion. Nobody else can match you in those areas. So when you are approaching this period of like, how do you begin to live your best life, or what is it going to take for you to live your best life, or what goes into you living your best life? The first stop that I would have you make is to identify your uniqueness and understand exactly what that means and exactly where it came from. I'm sure you probably think you have it all together. You probably think that, oh, I don't need that. I know kind of my value. I know what I'm trying to do. But if that's the case, are you using it to its potential? Are you living up to the hype, or have you settled? Are there limitations that are holding you back because you have not gotten clear about what your real value is and exactly how you want to show up and show out using it? So we are so unique, and we can do things that nobody else can because our perspective on those things are different. The way we were influenced in that area is different than someone else. It doesn't make it good, bad, better. It just means it's different. And when we stop being so concerned about what someone else is thinking or what someone else might say, and start really walking in our own truth, it becomes so much easier to find the confidence to take the first step. So when you are thinking about what goes into living your best life, no matter where you are in the process, maybe you are just beginning to wish you had a better life. Maybe you are in the middle of a transition or a pivot and you don't quite know which way to go because you don't know how to use what you've been blessed with. Well, the first step I would tell you to do is to really consider where your uniqueness is coming from. Identify your fingerprint. One of the things that used to happen to me when I first started in business was I was a little bit afraid, or there was some trepidation with speaking. I was worried that I would get up and I would speak and someone would ask me a question and I wouldn't know the answer. And that sort of freaked me out because I don't like not knowing the answer. I want to show up as my best. And I know people say that you can say, oh, I'm not sure about that answer. I'll get back to you on that. And obviously you can't say that. But for me, when I get up on that stage, I want to feel confident. I want to know that no matter what question someone throws at me, I will have an answer. That doesn't come from knowing all the answers, because I don't know all the answers. But where that confidence comes from is knowing my perspective on the answer and how I would handle that situation, or how I would manage that question or the answer to that question if I were in need of that answer. And I pull from my influence, experience, perspective, and passion every single time. Who is gonna argue with you about your perspective on that? They might try to tangle with you on your logic, but if it's your perspective, it's your perspective. And if you can back that up because you have done your work, your due diligence, and you've come up with this, then you'll be able to defend your theory, your version. So therefore, you don't have to be afraid. You can have confidence in that. So once you have really identified your unique value and how you want to show up, your fingerprint, your snowflake, if you will, that is the first step in really beginning to get to the life you want and to know what goes into living your best life. Now, the next thing that I think is really important in knowing what goes into living your best life is understanding what motivates you. Because you know it, I know everybody knows it. There are going to be times when the last thing you want to do is the thing that you need to do, and you're not going to be motivated. Or there are going to be times where you feel like you can't do the thing that you want to do. And you feel like you've fallen off the horse and you don't know how to get back up. And because of that, you're just not motivated. You feel like you failed. You feel shame. Let me promise you that you don't need to be afraid and you don't need to feel shame. You are not the first person to have stumbled. You are not the last person that will stumble. The difference is that the people who have stumbled before you got up, the successful ones, and they did the dang thing. Okay, so that is what you need to do. But in order to do that, you have to know yourself well enough to know where those triggers are, where those landmines are, and be very careful not to step on them. You have to know yourself well enough to know either how to avoid the trigger, or if the trigger is unavoidable, how to course correct and not get caught up in the trigger, but know how to get up and motivate yourself back on track. Also, rewarding yourself. If a reward is part of what course corrects you. Again, you have to know yourself and you have to know what it is that is going to light your fire. All right, this last one is relationships. Guys, relationships are the foundation to loyalty, commitment, to rapport. Relationships are the gateway to living your best life. Now listen, I have friends, I have associates, but I have relationships. And my husband, I'm going to tell you a little story. Years ago, when he was laid off, we never worried about where we would stay, what we would eat. Not that it ever got that bad. But I didn't have that feeling or those issues because we have amazing relationships. When we moved to Texas, I had two aunts. One to tell me, Andrea, make your house a home. Make it a place that people feel comfortable in and don't want to leave. And then I had another aunt that said, Andrea, when you get to Texas, make sure that you find a grandmother, an auntie, a mom figure in your church. And I did both of those things. And the result of that is that I have people who love me as much as they love their own kids, their own sister, their own family, and we've treated them just the same. So whenever they've had needs, we've provided. Whenever we've had needs, they've provided. My children call 13 different family members aunts and uncles because we did a Thursday night dinner group every Thursday night for years. Relationships are the backbone. They're the foundation to your success. You have to understand how to build those relationships. You have to know how to engage. You have to know how to reciprocate in relationships. Now, whether it's a business relationship, a personal relationship, if you are building a career and your boss, you're building a relationship with your team members, people that you are the boss of. Relationships are where you are going to build your trust. That is where your loyalty and that is where your commitment is going to come from. And so regardless of how you are growing, what your best life looks like, relationships are going to be at the core of that. So I have some familiar questions that I think you will recognize. And I think it's important for you to know that understanding your confidence, living your best life, and being able to identify your unique value, knowing how you stay motivated and what's going to light a fire under you to keep going when times get hard, and then creating those relationships that are going to sustain the test of time, that is just paramount in your ability to live your best life. But authenticity is the key to all of that. Knowing who you are and being able to leverage that knowledge to every circumstance you find yourself in. Now, if you've ever heard these questions or phrases, because I think that people are afraid to do these things and they don't know how. And that's why I'm here. So if you've ever heard someone say, just be yourself, it's so much easier said than done. Because if you have grown up being told you're one person, we're not even going to get into the reticular activating system because I call it your tape recorder. So your record button has been pushed since you were a young child. And so your reticular activating system has been recording messages since then. Some of those messages are good. Some of those messages are bad. Some of them are not serving you. So if you hear someone say, just be yourself, are you sure you even know who yourself is if you've not done the work to really know who you are so that you can do and be your best? What about this one? Grab my template. That person's template is based on their perspective, their experience, their influence, their passion. The template is going to give you steps and things that you need to do, and it will be helpful. But unless you know what that looks like for you, what those individual steps are for you, specific to the issue that you're trying to solve, the way that you need to do it to get the results, the template is not going to be helpful. I have a ton of templates, and I'm going to tell you about one. Years ago, I purchased for $12 annual revenue spreadsheet. This is an amazing spreadsheet, and I tried to use this spreadsheet 4 years. It was this person's template. Every year I would put what I wanted to make, how I could make that annually. But for 4 years, I never hit the goal. I would put all those numbers in this template and I would go about my year and hardly ever look at that template. I never really used it the way I was supposed to use it. It didn't click. It wasn't that I didn't understand the template, but it just never really clicked how to take what was over here in the template and execute it in my day-to-day. I didn't understand it. Last year, I was watching someone and they were talking about how they managed their year. And I realized something clicked. The other person didn't say anything wrong. She was perfectly fine. It made me purchase the template. But something someone else said clicked 4 years later after I had been trying to use this. That made me realize that all of the things that I was putting in my annual goals, were my annual goals even the right goals that I should have had? That was the first thing that clicked. Maybe they just weren't the right goals. The second thing is I did not tether my actions that year to those goals the way that I should have. I didn't know to. When you know better, you do better, right? So I'm doing better now. But my point with that story is if someone tells you to grab a template, don't think the template is going to be your answer. You are still going to have to know what you need. I call these circumstances for optimal success. You're going to have to know yourself well enough to know exactly how you're going to plug that template in to what it is you're trying to do based on what you know you need to do and be your best. So there's still work to be involved. Just because someone gives you a template, you still need to know you. You still need to be the CEO of you. What about this one? Who's your target audience? Just because you want to serve a particular target audience does not mean that particular target audience wants to be served by you, okay? Let me tell you what I'm talking about here. You have reasons, methods, steps, solutions that you think are valuable based on your experience with those solutions. If you have not developed a relationship with people who have shown you, told you, given you any indication that they want the solution you have, meaning you gotta get out there, start talking to some people, shaking hands and kissing babies to determine if you're talking to the right people. Because just because the target audience you want to serve is, that's what you think is going to bring you the money, if you don't get down in those weeds and have those conversations, get that information, do your research, build those relationships, establish those bonds, it's quite possible that they aren't going to want the solution you have. People want to know you care before they care what you know, okay? And so that is why revenue requires relationship. What about this one? What's your goal? I know you've heard this. We all ask these questions, right? If you ever purchased a program or had a coach or even gone to church, marriage counseling, people are asking you, like, what are you trying to get out of this thing? What do you want to happen? Well, intentions without motivation and plan lead you nowhere. You'll go nowhere. You'll chase your tail because you don't know why you're doing something. You don't know what your intentions are. Like, what are you trying to do? You don't know why you're trying to do it. And you have no way to stay the course when you fall off the horse. You have no way to course correct because you don't know what motivates you. So what happens is you find yourself in the exact same spot you were in day one of last year. Now I'm here to help. I want to help you live your best life. That is why we will be talking a lot here on my Instagram feed and over on my YouTube channel in the coming weeks about a challenge that we are going to do in June. And in this challenge, I'm going to help you create the blueprint that you need, that you can use to live your best life. I've just told you what goes into it. That's only a part of it, but I think we can get there. I think using the strategies that I'm going to share with you, because it's all you. I'm not giving you a template. You are going to find your blueprint. And when you find your blueprint, you will have exactly what you need to live your best life. All right. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the live podcast. If you are seeing this on Instagram after the fact, please listen all the way through. I hope if you got here, you've listened all the way through. But give everything a thumbs up. Go back and listen to it. Give thumbs up. Give hearts. Give all types of emojis. Leave a comment. Tell me your thoughts. And if you like this idea of a live podcast, then I'll do more. But I got to hear it from you. You got to tell me. Tell me what you think of this. Tell me what you think of my thoughts on what goes into living your best life. Thanks for joining me here on the CEO Mindset Podcast, where we are constantly evolving and being open to failing forward. Thanks so much.